Grand old party of Meade County. In our studio tonight, I've got Mark Burnett, who is the chair of the Meade County Republican Party. Thank you. And then we also have Tom Ballinger, the 5th district candidate for the Senate seat in the primary election, up against Stephen Meredith, who is the current sitting incumbent for the Senate seat. And tonight, we are actually going to feature an awesome podcast. So you got to stay in all night now. You got to watch this all the way through, because what we are going to talk about is not only the upcoming election, but we're going to talk about a topic that's kind of important to not only the local, but also the national, and it's about term limits. So we're going to get started. Mark, over to you, my friend.
Well, I mean, I know we want to get into this debate, but right now I think we want to talk a little bit about what's going on with Tom's campaign and what you're seeing right now. I know you're out working and talking to folks. Where you been this week?
This week total, I just spent 2 days in Breckinridge County. Spent most of this morning in Muldraugh, then went to a meeting in Louisville, and then come back and spent the rest of the evening in Muldraugh, hung some signs, knocked on some doors. I'm getting a lot of good feedback, and and that's positive.
Yeah, how's the experience been for you? I mean, this is your first election, right? I mean, I know you've served in different capacities, but is this the first time you've actually run for office?
First time I've ever run, and it has been a very big learning curve.
Yeah,
I mean, if you've got enough money, you can hire campaign managers and all this and that. I don't have that, so I just
I mean, especially in rural Kentucky, you don't see a lot of campaign managers, and you see a lot of people who volunteer and
exactly.
And I mean,
what about this guy?
Well,
I didn't get paid for it.
You weren't paid.
I totally did not get paid.
You just happened to be here, Steve. So,
Steve
was the campaign manager for Troy Coke last time. So.
I did bring a lot to the campaign, though.
Well, you're a good marketing guy. That's for sure.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
handling the marketing part and the logistics of keeping you straight where you need to be for meetings and stuff like that. That would help. But,
right.
I mean, you take it with a grain of salt and you keep rolling.
I ran for magistrate in, what was it? I'm trying to remember when it was, 2006 or whenever in that range. And when I did, it was I learned a lot just in my little magisterial district. And I didn't win, but it was the experience is what kind of got me into helping and learning about how elections work and things. And so I could help other people become, I had to learn how to be my own treasurer, right? I had somebody who was a treasurer, but you're still responsible for the monies that come in and out of your campaign.
Yes.
So I had, we had to learn all that.
And there is a campaign finance report due the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, I think it is.
Yeah.
And I've got it prepared.
It's like 30 days. Yeah, 30 days prior.
Yes. Yeah. And I've got all that ready. It's just, it's been a very big learning curve, but I just want everybody to know, just because I didn't knock on your door, it doesn't mean I didn't try.
Right.
Because I have knocked on and handed out over 13,000 cards this morning. I hit my over 13 this morning.
Wow. That's a lot of doors.
And,
a lot of, one thing that, when you say that about campaign, one thing is that the legislature has, over the last 5-6 years since the Republicans have taken over the majority, they've done. That's one area that they've done some good work. Probably a little bit more, but as far as simplifying the process, when the reports are due and things like that, because it used to be like you had reports as any entity, it would be like we were all doing the same reports. And we would report quarterly
60, 45.
And it was killer. It was killer because you have to have somebody who's dedicated to that. We're blessed to have Ruth Goddard as our treasurer. She does a really good job.
She does.
And very knowledgeable, and she cares about it. But sometimes it's hard to find that person.
It is. And I'm very fortunate. I've got a CPA friend of mine, a real close friend of mine. And
that helps.
I give him access to the account, and he's been keeping a spreadsheet on it the whole time, and that helps tremendously. But I'm always checking with him, making sure, okay, how much is there? Do I need to put anything else in? Because I'm funding this myself. I've had very few contributions just because I don't want any PACs. I don't want to be being beholden to anyone. And I really want to reiterate to everybody, just because I didn't knock on your door doesn't mean that I wouldn't appreciate your vote. I am trying as hard as I can. It's, 13,000, it's a lot of cards.
Yeah.
And I just ordered another 2,000, 2 to 3,000. I think I can put another 2,000 cards out because I've got a lot of meetings next week. I just wanted to reiterate, too, I didn't get to talk about the last show, veterans. I was not real happy with the way Senate Bill 39 or House Bill 39 went down. That bill right there could have helped the new veterans, individuals that are getting out of the service, tremendously. And instead, it got turned around to where it could have hurt them a lot about getting their VA benefits. And that's one thing that you will not get from me. I will not vote for a bill that will hurt the veteran. There's too many issues that veterans have to deal with. Unless you're a veteran, you just don't know. It's just, I've been down that road. It's a road well traveled, and it shouldn't be having boulders thrown out in the middle of it. So that's my feelings on that right there. I will not turn my back on the veterans. Me and you wanted to talk about the term limits.
Yeah. I mean, that's.
Now, wait a minute. You cannot just transition. We got to run us an official.
I think we can do whatever we want.
Listen.
Really. I mean, you're pushing buttons over there.
Listen.
If you ignore him, does he go away?
All right. So listen. All right, that's your buzzer. All right, you're each gonna get a 3-minute intro on why you think there should be term limits. 3 minutes. Once you go over, that's it. And then I'll ask you a few questions, and then I'll let y'all go back and forth at it, and it'll be a semi-debate. Are you ready? That way you can't interject each other.
I defer. I mean,
now at the beginning there was a coin toss, and Tom won.
Wait a minute. Tom is in the affirmative, so he should go first.
Well, I already said he won a coin toss.
So, okay, I'm just saying.
You got to listen, man. I'm telling you, this is how it's going to go down.
I'm trying to keep up.
This is an official debate right here.
Do you really want to toss the coin?
No, I got a coin. We're good. Which one is that one? Okay, yeah, Congressional Medal of Honor coin. That's all right.
That's
all right, now listen.
Good friend of mine.
All right. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to start you off. You're going to be up first, Tom. I'm going to give you a clock. You're going to get 3 minutes, and you're going to state your case right there on that camera. It's just you on the camera, and I'm going to back out of the camera.
I'm not going to need 3 minutes, Tom, so you do whatever you need to take.
Yeah, you do whatever you need to do, he said. Listen to him. All right.
I wasn't prepared for a structured debate.
Oh, yeah, listen.
But that's okay.
I'm going to practice a little bit.
All right. I know, Steve, you want to get into, you want to start hosting debates.
Tom, are you ready?
No.
All right, your time begins right now. Oh, no, it's over. All right, Mark, your turn. No, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to push the button. Go ahead, Tom.
We got to get another moderator.
You're good. Go ahead.
Nobody's want to come on your debate, Steve. I'm telling you.
Go ahead.
On the issue with term limits, this is my thoughts on it. My thoughts on it in an entirety. If an individual, say a state senator, 2 terms, 8 years. House of Representatives, be 4 terms because there's 2 terms apiece. So that would be 8 years for them. I feel, and a lot of people that I've talked to feel, after 8 years, they get more out of touch. They don't really know what's going on. They've spent so much time in Frankfort or away from home that they lose what the small organizations that make up their communities are needing or going through. It's just in the way they use, some of the senators use, they'll write a real vague bill and then come back the next year and try to improve on it. Well, if it didn't get improved, then you got just a vague bill sitting there.
Yeah.
The way I look at it, if you've got a set limit there, you've got to write a very precise bill, very accurate bill, and hope it gets through the House without being cut up, or the Senate for that part, without being amended. And you have to be able to work that structure. And if both the House and the Senate is underneath the same guidelines, I think you'll get a lot cleaner bills that you won't have to go back and fix, because one day of legislation is about $250,000, probably a little over, and that's taxpayer money.
Yeah, I mean, it's are you? Is that,
I'm done.
Is that your?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
We can
one.
Now, wait
I
a
mean,
minute.
because
Now, wait a minute. I'm the moderator here. You got to wait your turn.
well, the moderator.
No,
is not,
listen,
I mean, once he's
listen.
done, I just go.
Well, no, you don't get to just go.
You're just going to break it up. This
So,
is not going to.
Tom, thank you for your kind words. Hold on a second. As the audience applauds. Now, Mark, I'll turn it over to you. Your time will start now, sir, please.
So here's the way I look at it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Your time happens to be up. I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Mark. I
So-
promise you're okay.
Okay, so we live in a representative republic, right? I'm going to define this a little bit. So what are term limits, and why do we why do people feel strongly about them right now? So we live in a representative republic, right? Which means we in a group of people a group of people within a boundary of an area, an actual set of land. Mm-hmm. We decide, hey, I want a person to go represent me to the legislature. So we have, first of all, let me take one step back. We're not debating term limits for executives. We already have those in place in most places. I think all executives are pretty much 2-term limited. The United States wasn't originally, but George Washington set the precedent until, arguably, until FDR ran for 4, right? He ran. Mm-hmm. He won 4 terms, but he died during his 4th term, right after the beginning of it. So that's already happened, and it's a difference between when the president or it's different when it's a president or a governor even on the executive level, because they are the face of the government, because they're the people that are actually setting the bureaucracy and running the bureaucracy that we have to interface with. Mm-hmm. And you can become people can become very beholden to the executive, to the president or the governor, and they can establish these connections and rules within those departments over time. So if they keep going and going and going, they can basically almost eliminate the legislature and the representative piece of it, and kind of take over through the bureaucracy, which we see that a lot, which is a problem we have with our legislation, vague legislation specifically. But where I'm coming from is when you start talking about what we're talking about is our representatives. Are our representatives going to do we term limit the people we want to send to represent us? And so there's a lot of my personal opinion is that when you do that, you're saying that group of people can no longer send that representative, the person they may want to be the representative, to represent them. Now, why is that? Right? I think right now, but anyway, I mean, that's my introduction. So I don't know if we want to. I wanted to make sure we set the terms of what we're talking about.
Thank you so much for your comments, Mark. At this point in time, no, I'm just kidding. I just want to keep pressing the button.
I know.
All right, now fun is over. So y'all just carry on the conversation. I think both of you started off with equally great points in consideration of this. I think what was I going to say? I think the interesting part is that when Mark and I had this conversation a while back, I was one-sided. I was very much one-sided, but there's some great thought into what is to be said. And to your point, there's a lot of great points too. I want to get this bill through because we need to do something, and then I'll craft it and beef it up later or whatever. And that does happen. And we'll watch that in the last legislative session. It took a while, like everybody's waiting at the last minute, but I'll let you guys carry on from there. But I think both arguably have great points, and I'm curious to see where the middle ground is.
So
I totally understand your point there. Give you, for instance, say city of Louisville. You've got a legislator, let's say a senator, that's elected from the city. Well, he's going to partially put everything he can, his focus, in towards the city.
I'm listening to you. I just realized my phone wasn't muted, so
And
I want to mute.
and so if he does that, then his suburb that's still in his district suffers. So on the other hand, if you've got a senator, if that one does 2 terms, next senator, those people pull together, they are able to put a senator in there, then your suburbs will get a little bit more strength. Because you see senators that they'll, I'm not saying they concentrate on one area, but most generally, if you look at each one of the districts, there's a strong spot of each one of them districts where most of their funding and their efforts are going to. And that's just who has that senator's ear.
Well, I mean, I think that's a little bit of a misnomer, though. I don't think that people really I think a lot of people think that we would just get a nice, diverse rotation of people, right? So first we have to define, are we talking about term limits for like a lifetime? So like if I serve 2 terms, you use 2 terms as for a senator.
Yes.
Let's just do it in terms of years. 8 years.
Yes.
So we're saying 8 years. So if you're looking at 8 years as a limit, so that means after 8 years, you're going to, I have a lifetime ban. I can never go back and serve. Are you saying just consecutive?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's
an important piece, right?
It's a very important piece.
Yeah. Because because I'll tell you what, did you know that there's 16 states right now that have term limits on their legislatures right now in the United States?
I thought it was 14, but okay.
It's 16. Well,
Okay.
it's 16. There was more at one time, but 4 have been found unconstitutional within their own constitution, mostly on the merits of how they were enacted, and then 2 have been repealed because there were unintended consequences to it. So, in some of the unintended consequences, well, I mean, right now, well, did you want to say something on that? Like I said, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
To cut you off. But it's so one of the things that you talked about was, if I remember right, is you said that they don't have enough time to get good legislation across. Or they don't, because they're...
If they don't write an effective bill, they wouldn't have the time to try to get it across.
Right. So
if you write just a general bill and somebody buys off on it, then the next session you're going to try to make amendments.
I'm trying to connect that to term limits. How does the term limit affect that?
Correct bill the first time, a complete bill the first time, and hope it doesn't get cut up in, say, the House or the Senate, whichever way you have to go, and then pass it from there. And if it turns out bad, then pull your bill. Don't pass a bad one that you've got to fix the next year, because if you got to fix one next year, it just costs the taxpayers more money.
I agree with that. I just don't know if I can say that term limits is the cause of that.
Well, what that will do, a term limit, in my eyes, what that'll do is that'll make you make more effective bills. If you think I'm going to get elected probably 2 more times, I can kick this down the road for another 7, 8 years, there's no urgency.
Well, okay, I can see where you're coming from on that. So, but when you look at it in the research there's been research done on the 16 that have, or actually all of them that have had term limits in the past, and they actually found that by having term limits created that situation more often. And what they said is that your first term, so a lot of times their first 2 terms, if you're, well, let's say the first 4 years that you're in, you're trying to understand how the legislature works.
The learning curve.
Their learning curve.
Yes.
So in those cases, if you had 2 terms, and so we can, I don't want to debate the number. So
yes.
But if you in this specific
so
scenario,
basically your first term is your learning curve.
Yeah, and you're really, and then you have to understand, how are you going to, because when you go to the legislature, it's not going to be just it's not just I'm going in there, I'm going to put my bill for it, and it's going to go.
You have to have backing.
You've got to go get people. You've got to go be able to convince your fellow representatives or senators or what have you to back your bill. And sometimes it takes 5, 6 years to get enough people to back that. You're gone by then. You can't.
Year 8, you're gone.
Yeah. So year 8, year 8. So you took 2 to 4. You took 4 years to get used to it.
But
now you're trying to gain.
If you're in a situation like that, everybody's at 8 years. So everybody's trying to get that, little. If you help me with this, I'll help you with that. Yeah. I'm very fortunate. I've got to meet several people and talk to several people that's in the Senate and in the House. Usually on a Friday afternoon, there would be 16 to 18 calls, and and that's a good thing because I've developed some relationships there. But when everybody's on that same playing field, you're not like now where a person can just sit there and wait 5 or 6 years.
But why do people wait? I mean, why do we think that people just get to sit there and wait?
Probably trying to get enough people on his side to make a bill pass.
Well, maybe, but there's nothing that says that he's going to win another election.
No, there is nothing.
I think that's the biggest, and I want to get into that piece in a little bit, but I wanted to, right now I'm just trying to I wanted to
get your baseline down.
I'm trying to communicate that there are unintended consequences to it. And there were some very specific consequences that were found in the studies on these 16 to 20, let's say 16 to 20 states that have had these. And I can bring it up. And by the way, you can go. I want to make sure that I give my. There's a couple of places that I went. I went to a University of Tennessee. What's it called? Hold on, I have that here. I want to make sure I give that. I want to make sure I give some references so people can go out go out and look at this themselves. So one is the University of Tennessee Brooks School. Let me see. Let me make sure I have that right here because I had it open and then I just closed it up on myself. It is the Baker School at the University of Tennessee.
Okay.
And they had
out of Knoxville.
They have a podcast. It's called You Might Be Right. And it's actually there's 2 former governors, one a Republican, one a Democrat, that runs this podcast. It's a really cool little podcast. I don't listen to it all the time, but I listen to it, from time to time. And they did a term limits podcast, which is really cool. It's you can go and take a look at. You can do a search on "You Might Be Right" podcast, and it should pop up. It should come up. So it's a really good debate. Not really a debate, more. It featured Lindsay. I don't know how to say her last name. Chavinsky. She's a doctor at SMU. And so she was on the podcast, Southern Methodist University, and so she was in the podcast visiting with them, and it was a really good debate. And they talked about a lot of these consequences and things. So, and then the other resource that I'm looking at today is there was actually an NPR article from October 2023 on term limits for Congress. It's actually called "Term Limits for Congress Are Widely Popular, but most experts say they'd be a bad idea." And so as I read this, I was like, oh, these are the things that I've been talking about. And so in this case, they said that there are, on this particular case, they said that there are unintended consequences include inexperienced legislatures. So in 8 years, and most of them are like 12 years, some are 8, some are 12. I think there's the maximum is 16, but I don't think that, no, there's not any 16s. It's 12 is the maximum that they have. So 3 terms as a senator versus 2 terms. So, but most are 8 or 16, 8 or 12 as the limits for the states. And they're fairly recent. So 1992 and above is about when all of these ever happened. And then, like I said, 6 total have been repealed. 2 of them by legislature, by law, and 4 by the state Supreme Courts and such. But increased power to the bureaucracy. So what would happen is if you term limit and you say, okay, 8 years from now, you roll over, 8 years after that, you roll over. So the maximum you would ever have anybody at that point would be 8 years of actual understanding service, right?
Yes.
So who's telling the next generation, who's helping the next generation get ready, right? So over time you would actually lose experience and education within the legislative bodies. And so the people that will fill that gap are the bureaucracies who are run by the executive and the lobbyists. The lobbyists will then be able to swoop in and say, well, this is how it should be done. And they won't have the experience to
throw them out of the office.
To say, no, yeah, exactly. They'll say, okay, well, I know what you're talking about. Tell me more. And now they are going to lobby more effectively. And that scares me more than...
I can see that point because the lobbyists are in our legislators' ears a lot more than we.
That's right. And so, and we think that they just cave to them all the time because occasionally lobbyists they'll make a point and they'll be able to, and of course it comes across like, oh, well, they're in their pockets. Well, no, sometimes they're making good. There are good lobbyists out there who are lobbying for good things like veterans benefits and things. There's lobbyists that are working on those things for veterans. And so a lot of times legislation comes from two places. The lobbyist brings it and says, hey, we need to do something about this. And sometimes it's...
Or you have a lobbyist saying, this is going to hurt my industry. We need to do something.
Those are the ones I don't like the most.
And I think that's what happened with House Bill 39.
I mean, it's very possible. I don't know the ins and outs.
I wasn't there. I don't know.
No, I know. And so, and that's another piece of why you need more people to run. But I don't.
I totally agree. More people to run.
I think that is an answer to this rather than just term limits. But that's let me give the last one. Evidence of increased polarization and less middle ground. So what happened is that people think right now that there's people who have this thought that their theory is that if we do term limits, then people will come together. And they found that in a lot of these instances in these states, it pushed them apart because now they're running to one side of the aisle or the other to protect themselves at the legislative level. So they're creating more polarization in their legislatures. So, and then
I would think that would be just opposite.
You would think so, but the research says that it's not.
You've got you've got a time limit there to get something done. So you're going to work with your people, and then somebody from the other side's going to want something. So you're trying to not give them
But if
an
you didn't
edge.
get it,
and there you go.
If you didn't get it in your 8 years, who's carrying that mantle?
That's why you want to write a correct bill, because if you write a junk bill and you're going to try to build onto it year after year, if you don't win your election, who's going to pick that ball up?
Well, I know I agree with that, but and that's a very good example. I just don't think term limits fixes that. I think term limits actually hurts that because eventually nothing happens.
Well, I don't think it hurts it. I think it would encourage them to do a correct bill instead of a short bill. Well,
No, I hate vague legislation.
It burns me up
because the bureaucracy ends up filling the gap.
Exactly.
And then and that's what you have to avoid. If the legislature wants to control the executive, then write strong bills.
Yes.
And then the bureaucracy can't
touch it.
Can't get around it.
Yep.
So exactly. And so the thing is that I'm not against the reasons behind term limits. I just think term limits are not the answer. And I think that we're trying to
see
fix
that in a way.
Yeah.
Term limits doesn't fix everything.
No. I think it breaks some things.
But it doesn't fix everything, but it fixes some things. And it's just one of them things you have to look at. Okay, you have to weigh it out. And I'll read the articles there.
Yeah, I think they're interesting because they articulate it much better than I can.
Educated. Oh yeah,
they articulate this way better than I could. They had a really good debate. I really listened to the podcast, and those are not necessarily. These are not necessarily, conservative liberal folks it's not one leaning. It's not leaning one way or the other. I really enjoyed the podcast because
It's down the middle.
It's kind of down the middle, and they're just talking about the merits of the issue, which I think is what we need to get to more now, so that we can actually fix things.
The biggest thing I look at is a lot of what we call just the junk bills, or you'll have a big bill that's a real important bill, and you'll have 5 or 6 junk things in there, and the answer to it is, okay, well, we got to pass it, but we'll fix it later. Wrong answer.
And I hate that. Again, I think that comes down to more of the fact that do we have time? We have so many things we wanted to get done. Do we have time to fix any of them? I mean, what was it this year, Steve? 1,255 bills or something like that?
That was 1234, but 12
something like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Regardless, it was well over 1,200, and they all didn't make it.
It's his turn.
yeah.
They all didn't make it. You know what I mean?
Oh no,
no.
no. But the thing is that some of them are 3 pages, and some of them are
I've seen
500
several
pages.
bills that were a paragraph.
Yeah.
Major issues that were a paragraph.
Yeah.
And that
So-
stuff just burns me up.
So
Well,
I will
yeah,
say that
but-
there was a discussion last week during the legislative update from both Steve Meredith and Nancy Tate that was locally, and that was a discussion that current Senator Steve Meredith brought up, and it was to limit the number of bills that you can produce in a session, because there was one person that presented over 60 bills just from themselves, and they don't get the right necessary amount of attention, because even in his committee that he managed, there's not enough time that they have during the legislative session to even hear all of those bills. He gives each bill 15 minutes. That means in an hour they can only review four bills, and that's it. And then, if there's 30 bills and there's only so many committee sessions to hear the bills, and that's to argue the bill. You get 15 minutes, that's an elevator pitch, to produce something that is going to become a law, and then get its blessing, and then move it forward out of committee for approval. So
Time management. You have to submit.
well, there's not enough time in the legislative session to work that many kind of bills.
30 days. I mean, 30 days in the short session. They had as many bills in last year as they did this year. And this year you have to go with you have the budget and that. So you only
Which
have 60
ate
days
most
for
of
all
the
it.
time.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago.
You
where
don't
it's
pay
like,
attention to the government budget anyway. With a supermajority, you just don't pay attention to his.
Well, the governor, I mean, yeah. I mean, but we're putting it in. The Republican Party is setting the tone for the budget.
Yes.
So it takes time for them to develop that, and everybody has, and there's a lot of, there's a lot more money in this year's budget than there was in the previous budget, because we're hitting the marks that we wanted to hit. I think Nancy said it was like 45 days or something like that of surplus. Was it going to 60?
It's not a surplus.
Or not surplus,
It
but
is a
rainy day fund.
reserve. It is a reserve.
Yeah.
And it's at 45 days. And when they finish session, they will have enough to run the government for 60 days without pass-through money.
So so if nothing comes in,
Yeah.
some disaster happens, we can run the Kentucky government as it is for 60 days.
Unlike our neighbors in Tennessee, they're independent. They can run for 10 years independently without federal government.
Yeah.
Just saying.
So it's
Well, see, that's a lesson learned right there from COVID.
yeah.
When COVID everything started shutting down, there was no tax revenue, everything. And they recognized, that they had to.
But it's also a lesson learned for conservative values being brought in our
Exactly.
legislation, because instead of blowing money,
Save
which
it.
others would want to do, in fact, it's in the paper, get it tomorrow, but I even talk about this. One of the examples of the line items that they reviewed 300,000 line items in the budget. Or it's 30,300. Look at the paper. I got it quoted directly. But anyway, I think it's 300,000 line items, or 30,000. I'm still wrong. Anyway, but the bottom line is they went
I didn't
line
get my paper until I was walking out the door to come here. So I didn't see
line
it.
by
Got
line.
mine yet.
And here's an example of budget. They went from 48 billion in spending in the last budget. Now they're going to 130 something billion in spending. And you're like your sticker shock. why are y'all spending that much money? Well, they're technically not spending all of the money. They have their normal monies that come in through tax dollars and all that other stuff, but they have a lot of ARPA money that came that hasn't been spent. That, and as you know, in our government, it just keeps rolling over. You don't have to use it or lose it. It just keeps rolling over. So what they did in House Bill 1,
I hate use it or lose it money.
I do too.
It
I know.
That's the
creates
military.
waste. It
I know.
creates wasteful
But
spending.
anyway, yeah, right. So exactly. So what they did is in House Bill 1, they invested a lot of money back into a lot of programs that would have otherwise not got money. Some of that went to schools. It went to these other programs.
Teachers retirement.
Yeah, went into teachers' retirement. But that's not the point. The point is that when they did this budget, yes, spending went up, but also conservative spending went into look. In some of these line items, the governor had $10 million to spend in a discretionary road fund. He only spent $2 million. So you know what? He's only getting a $2 million budget for discretionary road spending, and the other $8 million now in this budget are going back out to the counties to run their road programs.
Yes.
And,
Yeah, I mean,
and that's why it looks like we're spending.
I would rather our judge executives have discretionary road funds.
100% agree. And so it's that one. Here's another one. There was 30 million, I think it was $30 million or 300 million. It was really expensive. $300 million for child care in the state of Kentucky. They only spent like 20 something million of 300 million. That money got redistributed across other programs. Period.
Well,
Did y'all get any of it for your water department?
I don't know. That's not. I mean, bottom line is,
let's roll this back in a little bit. Let's roll it back in a little bit
They
because
was able to reallocate all those funds. And
because
that's-
we went
that's why
down
you do
the
it.
we went down the budget talk because of the fact that it takes up a lot of time in our
a
legislature.
lot of time.
And
but,
so
but
and
that's
going to lead us down
worthwhile
to
time than this last legislature
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they
yeah.
spent
No, I
that time to
gotcha.
go line by line.
I got
So
you.
do you think it would be better if they did 260s?
Maybe I don't know. I don't know what the number needs to be, but it would definitely. I think 260s would definitely be better than it would give them more time. But you said it earlier. How much does it cost us per day to run the
Exactly.
legislature?
So-
So we have to think about the consequences of that. But I think that's either we have to limit the number of bills that can come in, right? Like maybe it's. Maybe no more than 5 bills per legislator in a
That
session.
won't happen.
No, of course not. But I'm just saying that
Yeah.
term limits aren't going to happen either.
That's true too.
So we got to start thinking about alternatives and what real solutions are to the actual problems that we're seeing that we think term limits are going to fix. But term limits aren't going to fix these problems. They're just going to kick them down, or they're going to create other problems on top of these. Is where I was coming from with this whole thing. And anyway, I don't know if you have anything you wanted to add there, or
I have some. But go ahead.
I understand the outlook on limiting the bills. I could probably wrap my head around that. But if when you've got a budget year and you've got so many people dropping bills, and then you got a budget on top of that, that is a full schedule. And if you actually look at their schedule, I think there was a few weeks there where they wouldn't clock in till after lunch sometime, and then they was clocking out that morning. So Monday and Friday there wasn't a lot being done. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is when they were getting most of their legislative work. Because I talked to several of the senators and House of Representatives on their way home at 1:00.
yeah, but I don't know how that adds. I don't know how that. I mean, that may seem like it's a.
That's 2 days out of 5.
But is it 2 days? How does it count?
Long as they gavel in, it counts for a day.
Is it 1 day?
Yeah.
I mean, because like if you gavel in for 15 minutes, it's a day.
I don't know.
Well, I don't know. That's why I'm asking the question. So I don't want to assume that it is a day, but if it's 2 hours or whatever constitutes a day, I don't want to assume that because they were on their way home at 1:00 on Friday,
it was counted as a day. And I understand
if it counts
that.
as a whole day or not.
Sometimes
or does that count as 4 days? Because I know that it's 60 days, but you really the biggest limit is you have to have it all in by April 15th.
April 15th.
So April 15th is your deadline. So whatever
the limit in the bills would probably ease it, but I don't
Again, that's not my
with a full-
solution.
No.
I think that we need to evaluate. I think we need to evaluate what is needed at the by the legislature to do real bills. I think that we need to give them the time to develop bills. I think that that's a problem because, a lot of times a senator or a representative will have, they have a concept of a bill that they want to put together, but rarely, if ever, do they actually write the bill. They have a group that writes these bills for them. Was LRC or something like that. Yeah.
Yes.
So
very smart people.
They are, but they are a bureaucracy of people that are writing our law that can insert.
But that's when you go back and proofread. And Nancy Tate, one of hers, when she was reading through, she goes, "Okay, I could tell this was wrong," so she had to send it back. That's where you go back and read your bills.
Absolutely. But you don't. But do you read? Does everybody? And does everybody read their bills? And does every senator and every representative read every bill and proofread every bill? They don't, because they can't. They don't have enough time to.
1,200, but at least you could read your own bills. You have to. You have to police yourself.
I absolutely. If I'm putting a bill forward as the main person, I'm the owner of this bill.
Yes.
Then I would say absolutely. That's the person I'm going to hold responsible for the content of that bill.
Because then when you say, "Can you sponsor this bill?" You're talking, and then they sponsor it. You're backing this bill, and if you haven't proofread it and know it's good from front to rear, then you're putting them at jeopardy too.
Well, of course, but a lot in the legislature they're going on trust at that point.
Yeah.
But again, term limits hurts that. Because now, how do I trust people? Do they have, yes,
it's going to make you read all the bills in.
But then you don't have time. You do not have time as a representative.
I could see that.
So does that mean that Kentucky now has to stretch out our year to 6 months of legislation? I don't think that would ever fly in most of our opinions. We don't want to spend more money on legislators.
That's several $1 million.
So that's where the rub comes in, and we're not going to solve that part of the problem.
There's too many different angles
that we can look at.
It's a major problem.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I mean, we could probably do an hour on that, or probably 3 or 4 hours on that.
But you have to, as a legislator, have to read your bills and somebody has to trust you on that. And if you don't read it, and if for me, like even in the military, if somebody brought me a report, I'm going to skim it, if nothing else.
Yeah.
But if it's something that my name's going to be on, I'm going to read it.
You read it. That's right.
Because that's your name.
Absolutely. So, I'll say this on term limits. My biggest reason that I'm going to oppose to term limits it's one of them. I don't know who it is. It's one of my phones. So sorry about that. I could actually pull 3 or 4 in here, but it's like, these are the ones. So, by the way, if you all want to call in, 270-945-3418 is our line. If you all want to call in and talk about this, we didn't put the number out right away because we're having a discussion. But as this moves on, if somebody wants to call in and comment or has an idea or a thought, we would love to hear that as we wrap up this segment here.
And it may be a combination of things, i.e., limit the number of bills and lengthen the session.
Yeah. It could be. There's got to find a balance. So
exactly.
I don't have an analysis in front of me that says this is how much time would be appropriate. But I'd love to have the opportunity to do that analysis or to see people do that analysis, so we can put forth a lot of these things that we're talking about are not even law. These are rules of the legislature that are determined by the legislature themselves. So the House Speaker.
Internal.
I think Steve's got something.
Well, I mean, I've been waiting to chime in. So
sorry.
We weren't paying attention.
You're saying a combination or something to that effect. Here's what I'm going to tell you the problem is. So you're upset or you're angry or you're frustrated. One of the 3 things that compound the argument to have a term limit because we think that you've been in office way too long. I mean, I could just say that about Joe Biden. I could say that about a couple of other people because we don't like them. And the problem is that we have our opportunity because we don't like them. If you want a term limit, vote. Vote. The problem is that everybody wants to complain, but they don't want to go to the polls and vote because they think it doesn't matter. And in fact, it does. You know what, buddy? Your term is up. Me and all my buddies and their buddies and their buddies and their buddies, we all agree we're going to show up at the polls and then we're going to vote you out because we're going to vote for our new candidate if we got one that's worth a darn to replace that person.
I'm gonna put a wrinkle in your argument there because you know who you want to you know who most people get mad about?
Who?
Well, you said Joe Biden when he was in the Senate.
There's Republicans too. I'm just picking, but I'm just saying.
Pelosi.
Nancy Pelosi,
right?
yeah,
right.
Still in office.
They want Nancy Pelosi out.
Yeah.
We want Nancy Pelosi out.
But nobody shows up to vote.
But San Francisco doesn't want Nancy Pelosi out. She was their representative. That's who they choose to send.
That's right.
Right? So yes, we don't want her there. So what we're saying is we want to cancel their ability to send their representative who they want.
Yeah,
that's what we're saying because we're mad.
Right.
It's an emotional response.
No, you gotta get it.
We're saying that problem.
We are saying the same thing. And my other argument,
I know, but I just wanted to make sure that
yeah. My other argument to this is simply this, and I'm going to stay with the voting conversation. I could prove to everybody in this state that we could have absolutely had a Republican governor if our rural counties would have actually showed up and voted. The voter turnout of our rural counties, given the number of registered voters in each one, would have more than put him out of office in the governor's seat if they would have just showed up and vote. The number of registered voters in the rural counties, because the turnout for the big city doesn't turn out, but by mere population, there's enough votes there that cancel us out. And if we just showed up in full force, if your voter registration card says you're a registered voter for your party and your party doesn't agree with that party, then just show up and vote. I mean, that's right down the middle. I don't know how else to tell you, but numbers don't lie, and your vote does count. And instead of making up new rules and policies, why don't we just use the policy that's in place? You're given the rights and freedoms to show up and vote and go vote.
That's right.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna tell him.
No, I mean that's
don't tell me.
Yeah. That is. I mean that is. I mean you're making my final point before I got to it, but it's because that's where I wanted to come in on the fact that it's your representative we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's why I separate this out from the executive. The executive, we all agree, needs to be limited.
When you've got 18 to 25% turning out in the rural areas and even in some of your moderate cities, you're not representing your party or yourself. And when you've got Lexington and Louisville and these bigger cities, they may have 18 to 25 just like us, but there's a million people.
Yeah, there's
it's a numbers game.
I think there's 687,000 registered voters in Jefferson County.
Yes.
Right, something like that.
Yeah,
there are 30,000. No, there's only 30,000 people in Meade County, and 22,700 are registered. So,
and last election you had a 24% turnout.
I think we were in the last general election. What did we ended up with? We
were 28 in Butler
I think
County.
we were around the same. Yeah, we were in a similar situation. I can't remember what the number was. Do you remember what it was, Steve? That we ended up with the.
But it's phenomenally low.
22 to 24. I forget. Are you talking about the turnout?
Yeah, the turnout for the last election.
It was less than 25.
Oh no! We were for Meade County or the country?
Meade County.
Meade County. We were much higher than that on the last. Are you talking about in November?
Yeah.
Oh no, it was not that high because we didn't have. No. It was higher with the the two amendments. It was much higher when we did the two amendments.
That was 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
that was 2 years ago.
Yeah,
But,
that's because that was
it was
local
low.
elections.
It was like 22 to 27.
Yeah, local elections
between
drive-
22 to 27. I think.
Local elections and presidential elections drive voter turnout.
Yes.
Not for primaries.
And see, that's what's going to
primary
hurt
is
here,
gonna-
because like in my home county,
Yeah.
I'm the only thing on the ballot.
Yeah.
That's it.
So there's not a lot of excitement, unfortunately.
I've got
No offense. but
350 signs out across Butler County.
You
We'll
know,
see.
it's like, you know.
I mean, it's how do you approach something like that?
Yeah.
People just need to be motivated to get out. That's why my big signs say your vote matters.
So let's take this back to the term limit thing, right?
Okay.
The term limit question, because I think this is something that I think we need to find a way to address. Now, I don't have a full solution, but how? I think instead of saying we need to limit how long somebody can be in, we need to find a way to force primaries, to have more primary participants available and such. So, and that could be, you know, pass legislation that says that, you know, one, let's make, I guess really what I'm saying is ballot access needs to be easier. The more people, because like you talk about, you know, what does it take to be on a ballot in Meade County is, you know, you get what, 2 people to sign your, if you're a member of the Republican Party or the Democrat Party, you just have to have 2 people sign. But if you're not a member of the party, right, you have to go get 50 signatures or 100 signatures, right?
And that's
depending on the scale.
on the scale. Exactly.
Depending on what position you're running for, how broad it is. So that's a little bit harder to go do. Now you scale that up to president, and then you got to get 10,000 signatures in a state, or 100,000 signatures, or whatever.
Per state, something like that.
It's like 10,000 or something like that for most states, I think. But that's a tough thing to do, and then we get into, well, like I told you this earlier, the Meade County Republican Party, we don't pick sides during a primary. We try to keep it even. We don't spend money on the primary. We will, you know, whatever access that we give to one candidate, we try to give it to the other candidate, you know, and we try to be very, very fair that way, but a lot of people have this notion that the Republican Party or any party is pre-selecting who they want, and that's all there is. But I don't know about the Democratic Party, because they have things like super delegates and things like that. The Republican Party doesn't have that. We really are more grassroots, in my opinion, than the current Democratic Party.
Yes,
And I'm running my campaign grassroots, knocking on doors, walking door to door.
That's what we believe in. That's politics out here in rural Kentucky.
Yeah, I'm not sending all these. People will get an email from me. I think I'm scheduled to do 3 emails.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, I want you to see my face. Now, I promise you, I'm not going to be able to hit everybody. All I can ask
Yeah, I mean,
is, you know, I'm sorry I missed you. Please look me up if you like what I stand for. But
is it 5 counties?
yes,
5 counties. So Butler, Ohio,
Grayson,
Breck, and Meade. Yeah. So I mean, that's a lot of land to cover, a lot of doors, and so yeah, I get it. It's hard to.
He's seen me already.
Yeah. So it's a you know, it's not
not
easy,
an easy
running.
task.
And it takes help. It takes people helping you with your campaign and things, to not on a management level necessarily. It does help, but it takes somebody. You know, I think part of the problem is people don't have any knowledge at the basic level of, you know, high school or what have you, to understand what it takes to actually run for an election, right?
Or what it takes.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
what I mean.
yes.
What is the process? You know, how do you go get a volunteer to come help you?
It is.
You know, a lot of us don't learn until we get older and we start saying, well, hey, I'm going to go check this out. And,
Yep.
you know, and a lot of us have hobby. It starts out as kind of a hobby. I want to, you know, I'm a Republican. I'm going to go get conservative. Like a friend of mine's running. I want to go help. Mm-hmm. Well, then I learn a little bit. And then it's like, oh, well, once you get in and you start understanding, it's why I'm so thankful for for the kids, like their names just went out of my mind. They come to the party. The party.
You're talking about
Eris and
John.
No.
Man, I just went blank too.
I know. I'm sorry. I have to apologize to him.
Well, I've got a group of homemakers.
Yeah.
There's several.
But see, that's
women,
good.
and they said we will do your call-in.
Yeah. So that's it takes that type of effort and get those people. But we need to teach people how to run for office. And just why isn't that a part of, we don't even have civics classes anymore.
No.
Right?
No.
And so why isn't that's the kind of stuff that you want to teach?
Because they don't want you to show up at the polls.
They don't. That's not necessarily, that's not your legislature and your governor. And
no, that's the schools, because the inner city,
they want to keep you they don't want you to be educated. They want you to do well on the pre-designed test, so that they can all say, look, well, good, we're doing against China or Russia back in the day or whatever. But really and truly, those things don't matter to the everyday Americans. What matters to us is, hey, can I go out and produce something that I can take care of my family? Go ahead.
I've been saying this. You got so many public schools that if they hit that proficient mark on the state standards, they're happy. Proficient is not good.
All right. Hey, I'm going to change the subject. We're going to go to a vet scene.
Wait,
Tom,
are you finished? Are you finished with the? Are you good with the terminal? I think that we've made our point.
He said I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm saying because we only got 4 minutes left. So you were recently at a vet site. I got the picture popped up. Tom, you were at Fort Knox and you were visiting with other veterans that are actually running for office or in office. So you want to tell us a little bit about that real quick before we go?
Yes. After House Bill 39, me and some other veterans sat down that are running for office. And we said, hey, we've got to brother up and say, we got to try to fix this. There's several veterans issues that are not being addressed at all. And we're seeing it, everything from the medical facilities to the old folks home.
And where were some of these veterans from?
You've got one out of southern Louisville, or one out of eastern Louisville area, Meade, and then you've got one out of the, oh my gosh, I just drew a blank. Right outside of Lexington. Lexington doesn't pull it.
Okay.
But the
So what was the event you guys were at that brought you to Fort
we just
Knox?
all got together and said, okay, this is what we're going to do, and
Okay.
it's
Y'all gripped and grinned. Did y'all break bread?
We did.
All right, awesome. So it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of you that showed up at Fort Knox. So I know you're behind the vets and you wanted to talk about that a little bit. I know that you talked about it in the opening remarks. Is there anything else you want to say to our vets?
Vets, I will not let you down.
Okay.
I've been in the same mud hole that you've stomped through too.
Yeah.
It wasn't as deep when I hit it. It's a little deeper now.
Yeah.
If we don't stand together, we're going to be forgotten.
Well, I definitely agree with that, coming from my background as a veteran as well. I've got an ad up. Thank you, Tom. I've got an ad up. I just want to let everybody know that there is a Wrestlers Rescue Pause for a Cause. You need to show up this Saturday. These wrestlers are going to come out. They're kind of famous, but they got all kinds of stuff going on, and they got Bucks and Muck that's going to have some food out there and stuff. But it's to help support the local animal shelter right here in Meade County, and I just want to throw that out there for everybody's attention. Mark, this has been an interesting episode for us today.
I've enjoyed myself. I enjoyed the conversation. I was, glad to be able to have the opportunity to actually put it out there and put some structure behind what I'm trying to say.
The way I look at these conversations is you're learning every bit of it.
Absolutely.
Knowledge is power.
Absolutely. I will tell you, I will say this. I've got a little bit of an echo coming
You're
back.
good. Go ahead.
Hey, so one thing I would like to point out is that we do have the 2nd District Convention coming up on this Saturday.
Yes.
What that will be is we will be selecting, there's a few things that we'll do, but mostly we'll be selecting delegates that will that will represent the 2nd District at the RNC, the National Convention in Milwaukee.
And I will see you there.
And I will see, we'll both be there. Steve will be there.
I'll be there.
And so
I'm going to try to get some video clippings of it and bring it back since I got that new high-speed video camera. So, hey, and that'll be coming up. I'm going to get lots of new content out on the website and on social media for the messenger and to help keep our community informed. I think this process will be an interesting process for you to get some insider sight on. Go ahead, Tom.
You need to take it down, your new camera down to Otter Creek. Get everybody pictures so you can show them what it looks like.
Oh, yeah, the new campground. Yeah, it's beautiful. They're doing a great job. I'm actually working together. We're working on, I think they're having something coming up in the first weekend in May, which is like a derby weekend. And then they've also got, I just spoke with them the other day, they're putting together it sounds like a cornhole tournament, but they're still kind of massaging it. Obviously, they're new, so they're trying to set up what are they going to do for the summer so they can get more information out. And I'm working with them closely to help put a marketing package together to get that out there. So, yeah, check out, gas prices are tight right now. There are tons of RVs sitting in the parking lots because everybody knows it's a lot of money to take that sucker to go somewhere.
Yep.
Right down the road, you've got your very own Otter Creek. You've got the campground right on the water by the Buttermilk Falls. And there's just these opportunities right here in our county that you can take advantage of and spend time with your family on a weekend that won't break the piggy bank because you're just going right from there to there. And you can enjoy the weekend.
And you still get away. You still get away from home a little bit.
That's why we like camping.
Yeah.
It's like a second home. You know what I mean? And Otter Creek is really trying to go out of their way to put some really good stuff together so you can have more than just sitting around your camper.
It's going to take some time, but they're going to get there.
Absolutely.
It used to be one of the greatest places to go in this area, and it will be again.
Mark, close us out.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. I know we had a great debate. Thank you to Thomas here, to Tom, for joining us. Good luck in your rest of your campaign, and thanks for the discussion today. So with all you guys out there, we appreciate all you coming out and joining us tonight. If you all have any questions or any if you want to put together you want a discussion on a certain topic, let us know. You can either put a comment in here or you can give us a call, 270-945-3418. We'll take that and see if we can't put a future show together for you. So
absolutely.
Thanks, Steve, for putting this for producing tonight, and thank you all for joining us.
Outstanding. From the Messenger Studios, the Meade Truth, the conversation paid for by the Republican Party.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.